The first snow of winter fell on Coldspire Palace, the same morning Scotty decided she was done following traditions that made no sense. She knelt in the stone courtyard with a copper basin and 3 white wolf pups, melting fresh snow over a small fire while the entire court watched from their windows above. The servants whispered she was breaking sacred protocol. The council muttered about proper royal conduct, but Alpha King Magnus stood in the archway and simply watched his mate bathe their children with her own hands, and for the first time in weeks, the pups stopped crying. Tell me, where are you watching from today? Because this is a story about choosing love over tradition and the quiet revolution that happens when a mother decides her children's comfort matters more than ancient rules. Scotty had been Luna of Coldspire Pack for 3 years, but she'd never felt like she belonged. She'd come from a small northern territory, a diplomatic marriage to secure peace between packs. Magnus had been kind, patient, waiting for affection to grow into something more. And it had. Against all odds, she'd fallen in love with the stern king, who softened only for her. But the palace was different from anything she'd known. Everything had rules, protocols, ancient traditions that dictated how she should dress, speak, even breathe. She'd learned to navigate most of them, bending where she could, breaking where she must. Then the pups were born. 3 of them, all at once. Aaron first, loud and demanding. Eric second, quieter but watchful. Lyra last, small but fierce. The healers had worried about Lyra's size, but Scotty knew her daughter was strong. She could feel it through the bond that connected mother to child. The first week after their birth had been chaos, but not the joyful chaos Scotty expected. The kind that came from too many hands, too many rules, too many people treating her babies like political assets instead of children. The ceremony hall was vast and cold, despite the fires burning in ornate braziers. Everything about it felt wrong to Scotty. Too formal, too distant, too much spectacle, and not enough substance. The 3 servants chosen for the ritual bathing stood in their ceremonial robes, faces solemn. They'd been trained for this since childhood, Aldrich had explained. It was a sacred duty, an honor passed down through specific bloodlines. Scotty didn't care about their honor. She cared about her children, who were crying. The copper basin they used was massive, engraved with symbols Scotty didn't recognize. The water had been blessed by 3 different healers, infused with oils that cost more than most wolves earned in a year. Rose from the southern territories, lavender from the western mountains, something called moon thistle that only grew in sacred groves. It smelled expensive, artificial, nothing like the clean simplicity of snow. The eldest servant, a woman named Petra, lifted Aaron from his padded carrier. He immediately began to whimper, then cry outright as she lowered him into the water. Too hot, Scotty realized immediately. Not scalding, but warmer than necessary. Uncomfortable for a newborn. The heat opens their pores, Aldrich murmured, standing beside her. Allows the sacred oils to penetrate their skin, to bless them properly. He's crying, Scotty said, her hands clenched so tight her nails cut into her palms. All infants cry during their first blessings. It's normal. It wasn't normal. Scotty's wolf paced restlessly beneath her skin, wanting to surge forward, to take her pup back from these strangers. But Magnus's hand on her shoulder held her in place, a gentle reminder that this was tradition, that she had to be patient. Petra worked with ritualistic precision, every movement prescribed by ancient protocols. She poured water over Aaron's small body, using a silver ladle, 3 times from the north, 3 from the south, 3 from the east, 3 from the west. She anointed his forehead with oil, drew symbols Scotty couldn't see properly. She whispered words in old tongue, blessings or prayers or spells Scotty didn't know. Through it all, Aaron cried. When they finally lifted him out, wrapping him in cloth that probably cost more than Scotty's wedding dress, he was red-faced and miserable. They placed him back in the carrier without offering him to Scotty first, moving immediately to Eric. The second son went through the same process. The too hot water, the ritualistic pouring, the expensive oils and ancient words. Eric didn't cry as loudly as his brother, but his small body was tense, his eyes wide and uncertain. He didn't understand what was happening or why these strangers were handling him. Then Lyra, Scotty's smallest, most delicate pup. Petra lifted her with the same ritualistic care, the same lack of genuine tenderness. And the moment Lyra touched the water, she screamed, not cried, screamed. A sound of pure distress that cut through Scotty like a blade. She moved without thinking, taking 2 steps forward before Magnus's grip tightened. "Wait," he whispered. "She's in pain." "She's fine. The water is tested. The ritual is safe." But Lyra's screams said otherwise. They were the sounds of a child in genuine distress, not simple discomfort. And still Petra continued the ritual. North, south, east, west, anointing, blessing, following protocols that had been established centuries ago when someone decided that royal children needed to suffer for their heritage. By the time it ended, all 3 pups were crying, exhausted, uncomfortable, wanting their mother. "The first bathing is complete," Aldrich announced to the gathered nobles. "The royal heirs have been properly blessed. May they grow strong in the traditions of Coldspire Pack." Everyone bowed. Everyone murmured appropriate responses. Everyone followed the script. Except Scotty. She went straight to her children, ignoring protocol that said she should wait for the servants to present them formally. She gathered all 3 into her arms, making soothing sounds, trying to calm their distress with her scent and touch. They quieted almost immediately in her arms, still sniffling, still unsettled, but comforted by her presence in a way the ritual had failed to provide. "Luna Scotty," Aldrich said, his tone carrying disapproval. "The presentation ceremony—" "Is done," Magnus interrupted. "My mate and children need privacy. We'll reconvene for the afternoon session." He guided Scotty out of the hall before anyone could protest further, his hand firm on the small of her back. They didn't speak until they reached the royal nursery, where she could finally tend to her children properly. "That was awful," she said, her voice shaking as she checked each pup for any sign of actual harm. "Magnus, that was torture." "It's tradition. It's cruel." She looked at him, really looked at him. "You went through that? As a child?" "Every royal child does." "And you hated it?" Magnus was quiet for a long moment. "I don't remember it. I was too young. But I remember my younger brother's blessing. I was 5, old enough to attend. And yes, he screamed. I wanted to comfort him, but my father wouldn't let me. Said I needed to learn that duty came before sentiment. That's horrible. That's kingship." But his voice was hollow, as if he was hearing his own words with new ears. Or at least, that's what I was taught. Scotty turned back to her pups, who were finally settling. "I won't do that to them again. I don't care what tradition says." "Scotty!" "No. Look at them, Magnus. They were terrified. They're newborns. They don't need blessing from strangers. They need their mother." "There are 14 more ritual baths scheduled, 1 per week for their first season. Then unschedule them. I can't just—" "You're king. You can do anything." Scotty faced him fully, her Luna authority rising to match his alpha power. "Our children suffered today, for no good reason, for tradition that serves no one. I won't allow it to continue." They stared at each other, wills clashing, love warring with duty. Finally, Magnus sighed. "Let me think about it. Talk to the elders, understand the history. Maybe there's room for compromise." It wasn't agreement, but it wasn't refusal either. Scotty would take it. For now. The ritual bathing must be performed by the appointed servants. High Counselor Aldrich had informed her on day 2. Royal heirs have been bathed this way for centuries. The water is blessed, infused with oils from the Southern Territories. It's tradition. Scotty had watched from a required distance as 3 servants she barely knew handled her children. The pups whimpered in their wolf forms, uncomfortable with unfamiliar scents. Lyra had cried the entire time, her small body shaking. "They don't like it," Scotty said, her hands clenched at her sides. "They'll adjust," Aldrich replied. "All royal children resist at first." Magnus stood beside her, his expression unreadable. She could feel tension through their mate bond, could sense his own discomfort. But he said nothing. The weight of kingship, of maintaining traditions his father and grandfather had followed, kept him silent. That night, alone in their chambers, after the pups had finally been settled in the royal nursery, Scotty confronted him. "I hated every second of that." Magnus pulled her close, his arms solid around her. "I know." "Then why didn't you stop it?" "Because I don't know how." He pressed his forehead to hers. Every tradition exists for a reason, even if those reasons are lost to time. If I start dismantling them, where does it stop? What if something I change causes harm I can't predict? And what if maintaining them causes harm right now? Scotty pulled back to look at him. "Our children were miserable, Magnus. Lyra cried for 2 hours after. That can't be right. Give it time. They're newborns. Everything is overwhelming." But Scotty knew it wasn't the newness that upset them. It was the wrongness of strangers' hands, of being treated like objects in a ceremony instead of babies who needed their mother. The pattern continued for 2 weeks. Every morning, the ritual bath. Every morning, the pups cried. And every morning, Scotty felt a piece of her heart break as she stood at a required distance, watching strangers handle her children with ceremonial precision instead of love. She tried to be involved in other ways. Feeding them was allowed, though only at specific times and under supervision of the royal nurses. Playing was permitted, but only in designated areas. Even holding them felt regulated, as if her own maternal instincts needed to be controlled and directed. "This isn't motherhood," she told Magnus one night. "It's performance. You're Luna of one of the most powerful packs in the north. Everything we do is performance." But his voice was tired, sad. He wasn't defending the system so much as acknowledging his own helplessness within it. Then came the night that changed everything. Scotty woke to crying. Not unusual, the pups were young, they woke frequently. But usually the night nurses handled it. Tonight, though, the cries continued. She lay in bed listening, waiting for the sounds to quiet as someone comforted them. They didn't. After 10 minutes, she couldn't stand it anymore. She slipped from bed, not bothering to wake Magnus, and made her way through the dark corridors to the nursery. The night nurse was gone, probably stepped away for just a moment, but that moment was enough. 3 small wolf pups lay in their padded enclosure, crying in tandem. Aaron's cries were angry, demanding attention. Eric's were confused, uncertain. Lyra's were heartbreaking, small, desperate sounds. Scotty didn't think. She went to them, scooped all 3 into her arms despite the awkwardness of it. They were heavier in wolf form than human, all thick fur and oversized paws. But she managed, settling onto the floor with her back against the wall, 3 pups piled in her lap. The crying stopped almost instantly. They burrowed against her, making small, contented sounds. Eric nuzzled her hand. Lyra pressed her tiny face against Scotty's chest. Aaron sprawled across her legs, already falling back asleep. This was what had been missing. Not ceremony or protocol or blessed water, just her, just their mother's scent and touch and presence. "You're not supposed to be here." Scotty looked up to find Magnus in the doorway, backlit by corridor torches. His expression was unreadable in the shadows. They were crying. The nurse wasn't here. Scotty held her children closer. And even if she was, this is what they needed. Me, not ceremony, not tradition, just their mother. Magnus crossed the room slowly, crouching beside her. His hand came to rest on Aaron's small head, the pup's tail wagging slightly, even in sleep. "The council will hear about this. I don't care." "Scotty, I don't care," she repeated, meeting his eyes. "Look at them, Magnus. They're peaceful for the first time since they were born. Because I'm holding them. Because I'm their mother, and they know it." Something shifted in Magnus's expression. Softened. "You're right." What? "You're right." He sat properly, his back against the wall beside her. "I've been so focused on maintaining traditions that I forgot why we have children in the first place. It's not to continue legacies or secure alliances. It's because we love each other, and they're a reflection of that love." Scotty felt tears prick her eyes. "So what do we do?" "I don't know yet, but we figure it out together." Something in her chest had been aching for weeks. A constant low-grade pain that she'd tried to ignore, tried to rationalize away. But lying in bed listening to her children cry, that pain became impossible to dismiss. She was their mother. She'd carried them for months, felt them move inside her, given birth in pain and blood and overwhelming love. They were hers in the most fundamental way possible, and yet she'd seen them less in the past 2 weeks than the servants had. Feeding times were scheduled, play times were supervised. Even holding them required navigating protocols about proper support positions and appropriate duration, as if love could be measured in minutes, as if bonding could be scheduled like meetings with the council. The worst part was watching other mothers in the pack. Common wolves, omegas, anyone without royal blood. They could hold their children whenever they wanted, could comfort them, play with them, bond with them without anyone questioning or supervising. The lower your status, the more freedom you had to simply be a parent. What kind of backward system was that? The crying continued. 10 minutes became 15. Where was the night nurse? Had something happened? Should she call for backup staff? Or should she just do what every instinct in her body was screaming at her to do? Go to her children and comfort them. The decision wasn't really a decision at all. Scotty slipped from bed, careful not to wake Magnus. He'd been exhausted lately, carrying the weight of kingship while trying to navigate new fatherhood. He deserved rest. And this she could handle alone. The corridors were dark and quiet, lit only by oil lamps placed at intervals. Her bare feet made no sound on stone floors. She knew this route by heart now, having walked it dozens of times during sleepless nights, always stopping just outside the nursery door, always listening but never entering. Tonight, she didn't stop at the door. The nursery was softly lit by a single candle. The night nurse's chair sat empty, a half-finished piece of knitting abandoned on the seat. She'd stepped away, probably just for a moment, to use the privy, to fetch water, something routine. But that moment was enough. 3 small wolf pups lay in their cushioned enclosure, a specially designed space with raised edges to keep them safe while allowing them to move freely. They were crying in harmony, each voice distinct. Aaron's demanding wails, Eric's confused whimpers, Lyra's heartbreaking sobs. Scotty's heart broke completely. She didn't think about protocol, didn't consider what the servants would say or what Aldrich would pronounce. She just went to her children, gathering them into her arms with the same instinct that had carried her through labor. They were heavier than she expected in wolf form, all thick white fur and oversized paws. Aaron alone was a solid weight. Getting all 3 at once required awkward maneuvering, careful balance. But she managed, settling onto the floor with her back against the wall, creating a lap space for all 3. The instant they registered her scent, the crying stopped. Just stopped. As if someone had flipped a switch. Aaron made a small questioning sound, lifting his head to look at her. Recognition flickered in his puppy eyes. Eric burrowed closer, pressing his face against her stomach. And Lyra, her precious smallest daughter, let out a shuddering sigh, and went completely limp, surrendering to exhaustion now that she felt safe. Tears streamed down Scotty's face. This simple contact, this basic connection, this was what they'd all been missing. Not elaborate ceremonies, not blessed oils, just her. Just their mother's touch and scent and presence. She started stroking them automatically, her hands moving through soft fur, checking them over the way mothers had been doing since the beginning of time. Aaron was solid, healthy, already showing signs of the powerful wolf he'd become. Eric was leaner, but no less strong, his body lean and efficient. Lyra was definitely the smallest, but Scotty could feel corded muscle beneath baby fat. Her daughter would be small, but mighty. "I'm sorry," she whispered to them. "I'm so sorry I let them take you from me. I'm sorry I followed their rules instead of my heart." Eric yawned hugely, showing needle-sharp puppy teeth. Erin had already fallen back asleep, sprawled across her legs with absolute trust. Lyra's small chest rose and fell in peaceful rhythm. This was what they needed, what she needed, what the bond between mother and children required. Simple, direct, uncomplicated contact. No intermediaries, no protocols, just family. She'd been so focused on being a proper Luna that she'd forgotten to be a mother. Never again. "You're not supposed to be here." Magnus's voice made her jump slightly, but she didn't loosen her hold on the pups. She looked up to find him standing in the doorway, wearing sleep pants and nothing else, his hair disheveled. He must have woken when she left the bed, followed her here. They were crying. The nurse wasn't here. Scotty's voice was firm, brooking no argument. And even if she was, this is what they needed. Me. Not ceremony, not tradition, just their mother. Magnus crossed the room slowly, each step careful as if approaching something that might spook. When he reached her, he crouched down, his eyes moving over the scene. His mate on the floor, their 3 pups sleeping peacefully in her arms. "The council will hear about this. I don't care." And she didn't. Let them hear. Let them convene their emergency meetings and clutch their pearls and decry the breakdown of tradition. Her children were peaceful for the first time since their birth. That mattered more than protocol. "Scotty, look at them, Magnus." She shifted slightly, letting him see their faces. They've been crying for 2 weeks straight, miserable during every bathing ritual, uncomfortable in the hands of strangers, and now, in my arms, they're finally peaceful. What does that tell you? Magnus's jaw worked. She could see the war happening behind his eyes, duty versus instinct, tradition versus common sense, king versus father and mate. He reached out slowly, his hand coming to rest on Aaron's small head. Their son's tail gave a sleepy wag, even though he was fully asleep. "They know you," Magnus said quietly. "Trust you in a way they don't trust the servants." "Because I'm their mother. That bond isn't created by protocols. It's not strengthened by ceremony. It just is. It's primal and pure, and it should be honored, not regulated." "You make it sound simple." "It is simple. We're the ones making it complicated." Magnus was quiet for a long moment, his hand still resting on Aaron's head. Through their mate bond, Scotty felt his internal struggle. He wasn't a bad king or a cruel father. He was a male raised in rigid tradition, taught that deviation meant weakness, conditioned to value stability over innovation. But he was also a wolf, and wolves understood bonds in ways that logic couldn't explain. "You're right," he said finally. What?" "You're right." He looked at her, really looked at her. "I've been so focused on maintaining traditions that I forgot why we have children in the first place. It's not to continue legacies or secure alliances. It's because we love each other, and they're a reflection of that love." Scotty felt fresh tears prick her eyes. "Magnus, no, let me say this." He shifted to sit properly beside her, his back against the wall. "My father was a great king, strong, fair, wise, but he wasn't a warm father. He believed in duty above all else, in traditions as sacred bonds. I grew up thinking that was how it had to be. That love was secondary to legacy. It doesn't have to be. No, it doesn't. He put his arm around her shoulders, careful not to disturb the sleeping pups. You've shown me that in 100 small ways since you became Luna. Questioning protocols that don't make sense, choosing compassion over ceremony, being brave enough to suggest that maybe, just maybe, the old ways aren't always the best ways. The council will fight us. Let them. I'm the Alpha King. My word is law. If I say my mate can hold her own children without permission, then that's how it will be. And the bathing rituals? We'll find a compromise, or not. Maybe some traditions deserve to die. They sat in silence, the two of them against the wall, their children sleeping peacefully between them. This was family. Not the formal, ceremonial version the court expected. Just two parents and their pups, finding comfort in proximity and love. "Thank you," Scotty whispered, "for trusting me, for being willing to question everything you were taught." "Thank you," Magnus countered, "for having the courage to challenge me, to push back when I was being an idiot, to be the mate and Luna this pack actually needs, not just the one tradition says we should have." Outside, snow had begun to fall. Scotty could see it through the high windows, white flakes drifting past dark glass, beautiful and pure and untouched, like love should be. They stayed there until the nurse returned, startled to find the king and Luna on the floor with the royal heirs. Word spread quickly. By morning, the entire palace knew that Luna Scotty had broken protocol to comfort her crying children. The council convened an emergency meeting. Scotty stood before them in the great hall, Magnus at her side. Aldrich led the questioning, his expression disapproving. "Luna Scotty, you entered the royal nursery without permission and handled the heirs outside of designated care times. Do you deny this?" "I don't deny it. My children were crying. I comforted them. That is the duty of the appointed nurses. The nurse wasn't there, and even if she had been, I'm their mother. Comforting them is my duty first." Murmurs rippled through the assembled nobles. Aldrich's frown deepened. "With respect, Luna, you're new to our ways. Perhaps in your former pack, such informality was acceptable. But Coldspire pack has standards. The royal line must be maintained with dignity and proper protocol. There's nothing undignified about a mother caring for her children. There is when that mother ignores centuries of tradition." Aldrich turned to Magnus. "Your Majesty, surely you see the danger in allowing this behavior to continue. If Luna Scotty can simply dismiss protocols she finds inconvenient, what message does that send? What happens to order, to stability?" Magnus was quiet for a long moment. Scotty could feel his internal struggle through their bond. He was a good king, one who valued tradition and order. But he was also a good mate, one who trusted her instincts. "High Counselor," Magnus said finally, "I've been thinking about our traditions, about why we follow them. Because they maintain order, Your Majesty, because they connect us to our ancestors. Or because we're afraid to question them." Magnus straightened, power rolling off him in waves. "My mate is right. Our children were miserable following the bathing protocols. They cried every morning, uncomfortable with strangers' hands. Last night, in their mother's arms, they were peaceful. That tells me something's wrong with the tradition, not with her." Aldrich looked genuinely shocked. "Your Majesty, you can't mean to—" "I mean to support my Luna. If she believes our children need her direct care, then that's what they'll receive." The hall erupted in whispers. Scotty felt a surge of love for Magnus so strong it nearly overwhelmed her. He was choosing her, choosing their family, even knowing the political cost. But Aldrich wasn't finished. "And the ritual bathing? The sacred protocols passed down through generations?" "Will be re-evaluated," Magnus said firmly. We'll consult the histories, understand their original purpose. But if a tradition causes harm to its participants, then it's no longer serving us, it's controlling us, and I won't allow that. The meeting ended in chaos. Half the council supported Magnus's decision, half were scandalized, but the king had spoken, and his word was law. That night, Magnus found Scotty in the nursery, sitting with the pups as they played. In human form now, they were even more adorable, fat babies with Magnus's dark hair and her gray eyes. "Thank you," she said as he settled beside her, "for standing with me. Always." He pulled her close. "Though you've made us both rather unpopular with the traditionalists." "Good. Maybe they'll be too busy being scandalized by me to notice other things we might change." Magnus laughed, the sound rare and precious. "Is that your plan? 'Cause enough scandal that you can quietly revolutionize the whole kingdom?" "Maybe," she grinned. "Think it'll work? With you? Probably." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children. Lyra gummed Eric's fingers while Aran tried to roll over, wobbling adorably. "I've been thinking," Scotty said, "about the bathing ritual." "What about it?" "I want to do it myself, but not with blessed oils and ceremony. With something pure. Something that means something to me." "What did you have in mind?" Scotty looked toward the window, where snow was beginning to fall. "My mother used to bathe me in melted snow. Said it was the purest water, untouched by anything but sky and earth. It was just us, her hands and mine, no ceremony. Just love and water and warmth. That's beautiful. I want that for them, for our children. I want them to know their mother's touch without protocol getting in the way." Magnus studied her face, seeing the determination there. "The council will lose their minds. Let them. You said it yourself. We're reevaluating traditions. This is me proposing a new one." "When?" "Tomorrow. First snow is already falling. Tomorrow morning, in the courtyard." Magnus kissed her temple. "Then I'll make sure everyone knows. Let them watch if they want. Let them see what real love looks like." The next morning, Scotty woke before dawn. Snow had fallen thick overnight, covering Coldspire Palace in white. She dressed simply, no ceremonial robes, just a warm dress and fur-lined cloak. Magnus helped her carry supplies to the main courtyard, the one surrounded by windows where anyone in the palace could see. A copper basin, kindling for a small fire, a clean linen cloth, nothing blessed or ceremonial, just practical tools for bathing babies. "You don't have to do this publicly," Magnus said as they set up. "We could do it in private chambers. No, if I'm going to challenge their traditions, they need to see why, need to see what I'm replacing them with." Scotty looked up at the windows, already showing faces, curious nobles waking early to witness the scandal. "Let them watch." Magnus nodded, stepping back to the archway. He'd be visible, but giving her space, his presence a silent support. Servants brought the pups, now in wolf form, for their bath. 3 white bundles of fur with oversized paws and bright, curious eyes. They'd been crying moments before, Scotty could tell. But as soon as they saw her, the cries turned to excited yips. She gathered fresh snow in the basin, packing it carefully. The small fire she'd built began to heat the copper, and slowly the snow melted. Steam rose in the cold morning air, creating wisps of mist that caught the early sunlight. Scotty tested the water temperature with her hand. Perfect, warm but not hot, pure and clean. She lifted Aaron first, the largest of the 3, and lowered him gently into the basin. He relaxed immediately. She used her hands to pour water over his fur, working it through with gentle fingers. No oils, no blessed herbs, just water and touch and soft words. She sang as she worked, an old song her mother had taught her, about snow and stars and children blessed by winter. The courtyard was absolutely silent. Every window showed faces now, nobles and servants alike, drawn by curiosity or scandal or something else. But Scotty ignored them all. Her focus was on her son, on the way his eyes half closed in contentment, the way his small tail wagged as she rinsed his fur clean. She lifted him out, wrapped him in the linen cloth, and set him gently aside. Eric next. He was quieter, more cautious, but he too relaxed into the warm water. She washed him with the same care, singing the same song, letting him feel her love in every touch. Then Lyra, the smallest, the one who'd cried most during the ceremonial baths. Scotty lifted her daughter gently, mindful of her delicate size. The moment Lyra touched the water, she made a small sound of contentment. Scotty's eyes burned with tears. "There you are, little love," she whispered, washing her daughter's white fur. "No strangers, no ceremony, just Mama." The sun rose higher, turning the courtyard golden. Steam from the basin caught the light, creating an almost ethereal effect. Scotty moved through her task with steady grace, completely focused on her children. When all three were clean and dried and wrapped in warm cloth, she gathered them to her, letting them cuddle close. Only then did she look up at the windows. Dozens of faces stared down at her. Some shocked, some moved, some angry. But all of them had watched. All of them had seen. Magnus moved from the archway, crossing to kneel beside her. His hand rested on her shoulder, and when he spoke, his voice carried in the silent courtyard. "This is how it should be. This is what love looks like." In an upper window, Scotty saw Aldrich's disapproving face, but beside him, an elderly woman dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. And in another window, a young mother held her own child close, understanding written across her face. The revolution had begun. Quiet, simple, undeniable. The council meeting that afternoon was explosive. "This is an outrage," Aldrich declared, his face red with anger. "Luna Scotty has not only dismissed centuries of tradition, she's made a spectacle of it, bathed the royal heirs in common snow like they were peasant children." "There's nothing common about the love of a mother," Magnus said coldly, "and nothing peasant about choosing purity over pageantry. The sacred oils mean nothing if the children are miserable." Magnus stood, and every wolf in the room felt the weight of his alpha power. "I watched my mate this morning. I saw our children peaceful and content for the first time since their birth. That's worth more than 1,000 sacred oils." Another council member, Lord Theron, spoke up. "But Your Majesty, what about tradition? What about maintaining our connection to our ancestors?" "Our ancestors weren't fools." Magnus's gaze swept the room. "They created traditions to serve their children, not torture them. If a tradition no longer serves, it should be changed. That's not disrespecting our ancestors. It's honoring the spirit of what they were trying to achieve, the well-being of royal heirs." "Other packs will hear of this," Aldrich warned. "They'll question our strength. Let them. Any pack that measures our strength by how much we make our children suffer isn't a pack I care to impress." Magnus moved to stand beside Scotty. "My mate has shown more wisdom in one morning than this council has in years. She saw our children's needs and met them with love. That's the kind of Luna our pack deserves." "The decision is made," Magnus announced. "Luna Scotty will continue to bathe our children as she sees fit. The ritual bathing protocols are hereby suspended, and if anyone has a problem with that, they're welcome to challenge me directly." No one did. The meeting adjourned with cold courtesy. As nobles filed out, several younger parents approached Scotty hesitantly. "Luna Scotty," a young woman said softly, "I'm Marin. We have a daughter, 8 months old. She's been miserable with the ritual baths, too. Thank you for showing us there's another way." "You don't need my permission," Scotty said gently. "She's your daughter. Trust your instincts." Others approached after, all younger parents, all grateful. Scotty spoke with each one, encouraging them. When the hall emptied, Magnus pulled her into his arms. "You're causing a rebellion." A quiet one. The best kind. He kissed her deeply. You're extraordinary. The days that followed established a new routine. Every morning, Scotty bathed her children in melted snow. The pups thrived. And every morning, more faces appeared in the windows. Not judging anymore. Learning. 3 weeks later, another young mother joined her in the courtyard, melting snow for her own child. Then 2 more. Then 4. A quiet revolution indeed. A month after that first snow bath, Magnus established new protocols. Moving forward, all parents in Coldspire Pack could care for their children directly. Ceremonial traditions became optional, not required. Winter deepened. The pups grew strong and happy. And every morning, as Scotty knelt in the courtyard bathing her children, wolves gathered to watch. Not to judge, to witness love in its purest form. One morning, an elderly woman approached. I'm Brenna. I served your mate's grandmother. Her eyes were wet. 60 years ago, I hated the ceremonial baths, but I never questioned them. You've given today's mothers what I wish I'd had. Choice. That's a gift beyond measure. Magnus appeared then, as he always did. But this time, he knelt beside her and rolled up his sleeves. Teach me. So she did. They bathed their children together, mother and father, while the pack watched from the courtyard. A family united by love, strengthened by choice. That night, Magnus pulled Scotty close. I love you, for your strength, for refusing to accept that things had to stay the same. I love you too, for defending me, for believing in me. It didn't cost me anything that mattered, and what we've gained, a happier family, a transformed pack, that's worth everything. Winter gave way to spring. The snow still fell occasionally. Other mothers joined Scotty in the courtyard, creating a community of women supporting each other in this new tradition. The pups celebrated their first shift without trauma, in their chambers privately, with just family. When Aaron, Eric, and Lyra shifted to wolf form on command for the first time, their parents were there with hugs and praise. More changes followed. Magnus questioned other restrictive traditions, keeping what served and releasing what controlled. And through it all, Scotty stood beside him, the Luna who'd sparked change by doing something as simple as bathing her children with love. One morning, almost a year later, Magnus woke early to watch Scotty. Just thinking about that morning, when you decided to melt snow and change everything. I didn't mean to change everything, I just wanted to take care of my babies. I know. That's what made it revolutionary. He kissed her. You gave our children happiness. You gave our pack freedom. How could I regret any of that? Later, 3 toddlers burst into their chambers. Mama? Snow? They went to the courtyard as a family. Dawn was breaking, painting the snow pink and gold. The children played while Magnus held Scotty close. This is what I was trying to protect. This freedom. This joy. I know. From windows, faces appeared. Not to judge, to witness the royal family simply being a family. This was the new tradition, not enforced by councils, but chosen by love. And it was spreading, transforming Coldspire Pack into something stronger. A pack where love mattered more than ceremony, where parents were trusted, where change was possible. All because one mother knelt in a courtyard and bathed her children in melted snow while the kingdom watched from the windows. Subscribe to hear more stories about Coldspire Pack and the Luna who changed everything. Ring the bell so you never miss an upload. And join our membership for exclusive behind-the-scenes content and early access to new stories. Tell me in the comments, what traditions in your life deserve to be questioned? And where are you watching from today? Until next time, may you have the courage to choose love over tradition when it matters most.